Ahmad Sharawi, welcome to the show. Ahmed, a pleasure to have your company. So, an historic visit, the first since 1946, of a Syrian head of state, but also the interim president, Ahmad al-Sharaa, himself a controversial figure, a former al-Qaeda terrorist.
First of all, thank you for having me. Again, as you stated, it's a very significant visit. He's the first Syrian president since the country's independence. But most importantly, a former al-Qaeda leader coming to the White House and meeting with a U.S. president. Let's not forget that the U.S. just delisted Ahmad Sharawi as a terrorist on Friday in order to allow him to visit the United States or visit Washington, D.C. So this showcases a change in U.S. policy towards Syria and welcoming of this new leader.
And in simple terms, is this a case of better the devil we know? Because, of course, the broader issue, the broader mission that Donald Trump wants to achieve across the Middle East is to stamp out terrorist organisations, particularly Islamic State. And so, therefore, might the interim president, al-Sharaa, be a useful ally to have, even though, let's be honest, he has a somewhat checkered past?
Absolutely. I think what the U.S. sees in Ahmad Sharawi is that he's someone who can counter ISIS and also counter Iran's influence in the region. Let's not forget that Iran had the biggest influence in Syria under the Assad regime, and with the fall of the Assad regime, Ahmad Sharawi had managed to decrease Iran's influence and also fight against ISIS. Now he has his own reasons to fight ISIS. In order for power consolidation, even though he was a member of al-Qaeda, he fought against ISIS ever since the early days of the civil war, and he also has his own self-interest in order to fight against ISIS. So we're seeing a marriage of convenience between the United States and the new Syrian government, in which the U.S. is trying to cooperate and partner up with the new Syrian government in order to limit or prevent the re-emergence of the Islamic State in the Middle East.
Could I ask you about something else which may be on the menu today, and that is the German government has announced that it plans to remigrate, if you like, 1.3 million Syrian refugees that entered the nation since the war broke out, and they're basically saying there are now no longer any grounds for asylum in Germany, and therefore we can begin with repatriations of Syrian nationals back to Syria.
Yes, I mean we've been seeing a number of Syrian refugees return to Syria following the fall of the Assad regime. There were about 12 million refugees globally during the civil war, many of whom went to Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, as well as Europe. Of course, we all remember the migration crisis in 2015, or that started in 2015. And so the German government right now wants to meet with Sharawi and his foreign minister following his visit in Washington in order to discuss the future of the Syrian refugees in Germany. From what I understand is that the Syrian government is open to repatriating all these Syrians. They're trying to bring in more investments and bring back more Syrians into their country. But of course, with the insecurity and volatile situation in Syria, some people might be more hesitant to come back.
Do you think with all that in mind, Ahmed, there's a case to be made for the return of there's at least 41,000 Syrian nationals in the United Kingdom, the vast majority of whom came here under the Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme between 2014 and 2021. Now the war is over in Syria. Might it be time for 41,000 Syrians in Britain to go back to their home nation?
Well, I mean, some Syrians would argue that the situation is still volatile and that their houses were demolished. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. But from what I see is that with the big part of the war over, and with a new government that is open to Syrians or who live overseas to come back, I think people would be more inclined to go back just because of that, because of the government that is more open to investments and support from the Syrian community overseas. But again, as I stated, it remains a case-by-case basis.
Well, rather than it being more appealing for Syrians to return, perhaps the German Chancellor is saying it is time to go back. The economic circumstances have changed, the political circumstances have changed, and the West cannot offer asylum forever if Syria is now deemed safe.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that also explains the amount of support that the new Syrian president is getting from the Europeans. I think they're trying to lobby for, or they're trying to get all sanctions removed. They're trying to create that environment in Syria that encourages the refugee population to go back. Again, as I stated, sanctions have been a major or a major obstacle towards Syria's economic recovery and reconstruction. And again, that's why we're seeing the United Kingdom, Germany, France play an important role in trying to recover Syria's diplomatic and political relations with the European Union in order to create that stable situation in Syria, in order to, first of all, fix the migration issue.
Yeah, I think you've excellently summarised there the notion of why sometimes we have to jump into bed, as it were, with political leaders we might find potentially unsavoury, what they did in the past, because if it can help the country get back on its feet and if we can help get people back to their host nation, I think that's 3D chess in action in politics. Ahmad Sharawi, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. A pleasure to have your expertise. Thank you.